little more in depth, specifically into women in gambling. So my name is Jessica Auslander. I have been treating problem gamblers for about 8 or 9 years now. I started off in Ohio and then moved to North Carolina, and I work in private practice. But working with women is one of the things I'm really passionate about. And most of, not actually, over half to most of my caseload right now are women gamblers. So want to go over this topic in a few different ways. First, looking at kind of a research overview. How do we evaluate research? Because after this conference, you may have some great ideas and some things you want to look into. So we're going to go real quickly about how to look at some of the stuff you find to make sure that you're getting some good information. Then more specifically, what the research says about women who developed problem gambling behavior or full-on gambling disorder, what that tells us about treatment. And then I'm going to take a couple minutes and talk about media and advertising and how it can specifically kind of target or speak to women. So when we look at evaluating research, we know in women in gambling, as well as any topic relating to gambling disorder, we call it a growing body of research, which means we don't have enough of it, right? And it's an area of interest that's going to hopefully we keep getting more and more studies. So we need to read this really critically and look at different aspects of research. So make it a little bit of a flashback from college or your grad program, but we're going to look at things like sample. Who was the research actually done on? Was it qualitative or quantitative? So qualitative, you typically see records reviews or interviews, reviewing media, things like that. Quantitative is going to be more of your objective survey, controlled studies. Both are great perspectives to give us different kinds of information. We look at the research methods, any assumptions, and definitely reading that section on limitations. So even if you're not a big academic or researcher, you can still learn a lot about what a research study is actually saying just by skimming some of these sections and picking up on these. Because we can look at research and say, okay, what's the headline? What's the bottom line? What does it say? But we have to be able to interpret that correctly to make sure we're applying that knowledge. We look at bias, look at the funding source, look at the purpose of the study. Was it funded by a commercial outfit? Was it funded by, a university? We have to look at that and kind of let that help us interpret the results. And with gambling in particular, because, as Dan touched on, there's so much the cultural aspect to it, that different cultures look at gambling differently. We have to really keep in mind that so much in the gambling environment changes really rapidly. It's going to vary by culture, by geographic area, by time. So research done in the 80s may be a lot different than research done today, particularly if we look at the changes in technology. So we have to really keep that lens in mind. How are we interpreting this study? And then specifically with research on women, and as well as other just subgroups in gambling in our culture, is it research specifically on women, or is it norming women's behavior compared to men? Because a lot of research, as we know, in just any area of psychology, kind of got its start with norming on, European, Caucasian, middle-aged, middle-income men. That's kind of the area of privilege in our culture. So a lot of research kind of leans towards that. So we have to look at if it's, research on a population or topic related to women, are they looking at women as a population, or are they norming this behavior compared to prior research that was maybe done on men? So it's something to keep in mind. The big thing with research is that we're looking at this idea of generalization. Can we take the results of this study and compare it to maybe the client that I've got across from me, or maybe my particular area or group that I'm trying to work with in my community? The results may not fit your client or their culture. So we have to really watch how we take this information and apply it. Overall, we know women are underrepresented in many areas of research. Gambling is not an exception. I think as the access to gambling increases, as we roll out more, sports betting and increase in, the social gaming, which Allison will go into later, we're going to see a change, I think, in trends and the sex-related differences in statistics, because I think women are going to be more and more represented as we kind of get away from this, idea that, oh, gambling's a man's problem. We know that women definitely are affected by gambling disorder. They are seeking treatment. And I think as just our overall cultural picture of gaming changes, I think we're going to see a change in representation in the research. So I'm kind of excited to see that. When we look at cultural differences, we have to look at very specific things like disclosure. So a female in one culture may be way more comfortable talking about gambling and disclosing their challenges more so than a female of a different culture. So we can't even just generalize to women. We know there's differences in research participation and even symptom or diagnosis reporting. So we really, again, have to be careful with how we're interpreting this. And then we look at research setting. The setting can be really important. If research is done at a casino, we're going to get a lot more of a different picture than if it's done at a racetrack. People who are playing primarily online, we may not even see a lot of representation of that to begin with, because a lot of the early research was done by physically going to these settings and interviewing people or taking statistics. And we may not be reaching those people online, or we always have the issue with researching people online in terms of true representation. So we're going to have a much different result with if the research was done face-to-face, if it was done online, if it was a phone survey. So just a lot of different things to keep in mind. So take a glance at these slides later as you're starting to look and do your own research. Take a look at this and make sure you're taking some of these things into account. So let's dive into a little more specifically about women and what the research says. And again, not a lot out there, but in general, women, we believe, gamble less frequently than men. But again, this is going to be very case specific, but that gap is going to be closing. Again, with social gaming, we know that gap is closing there. Some studies put the prevalence of women with problem gambling higher than men between the ages of 40 and 60. Some studies say it's lower. Again, we have to look at it through that lens. As a clinician, I try to just not hold any of those generalizations. And I just kind of take, okay, who's in front of me or in my community? I try to do more a broad prevention approach. The lifetime prevalence of gambling disorder is generally believed to be 2 to 3 times lower than men. But again, a lot of this research was kind of looking over the lifetime. We have to look at other subsections. So we have to look at by culture, by geographic area, by proximity to gambling and availability. Again, online gaming has changed that. Looking at age groups, we know there's differences across ages too. And then women tend to report lower win-loss totals, but the losses represent a higher percentage of their income, particularly later in life. So as Dan touched on, we may have a fixed income issue with seniors. When we look at women, we also have to put it in the context of the culture that, historically women have lower earnings than men. Think of, just the general societal shift of women being in the workplace or women having the bulk of caregiving duties for children and other family members. Women tend to have lower lifetime earnings to begin with. And that ratio of earnings from women to men is getting a little closer, but historically there's still a gap. So we can't really take that, if someone, if you have a woman in front of you who says that, well, they lost $50, don't write that off, because it's not about the money. It's not about that dollar amount. That $50 could be a higher percentage of her income than if there was a man sitting in front of you saying they lost $50. So we look at the percentage of income to get an idea of that impact on the person. We don't want to kind of get distracted by that number, as it, on its own. So with women, when they talk about the numbers, I try to get them away from, okay, let's not emphasize that. What's the impact of that loss, on your life? How much of an impact is that having? So again, women tend to prefer those non-strategic games. They're more likely to endorse escape gaming in the research studies. So as Dan mentioned earlier, men tend to be more the poker player, the racetrack. Women tend to be more slot machine. It's that escapism piece. And they're more likely to endorse preoccupation with gambling as a symptom. So we may see less in the other symptoms. If you look at the DSM-5, maybe it's less of that needing higher amounts. Maybe it's that preoccupation with it is more of the symptom they're going to endorse. So when we look at that escaping behavior, what are the specific stressors? We look at transition stressors with women. So has there been a divorce or a marriage, a loss of a relationship? Retirement is a big one for both men and women. For some women, depending on the generation, retirement for them, maybe they weren't in the workforce full time, but maybe their partner or spouse retiring has been the stressor. We see some of that. Any type of loss can trigger this. Looking at social isolation. So for women, especially older women, if we look at situations where maybe they've lost their partner or spouse, if they were a mother, maybe their children are now adult, they've left the home, and they feel very isolated. Escaping that, going to a casino and playing where there's other people around you, and even some of the retirement communities or other social structures offering transportation to casinos to get that socialization becomes a major trigger. But for women, tending to isolate ourselves socially at different points in life, that escapism really can be, can really be triggered by that, particularly if there is a casino, a place they can meet those social needs, or just that isolation by playing online, and having that, that fake socialization or that virtual socialization with maybe a computer, or someone else where you don't really know them, or they just want to be in isolation and they're going to play online. For women, it's more the want to play, not necessarily to win, to dull the feelings. So we still see chasing. Chasing is still a factor, more so to recover the loss for a security aspect or to continue the play. We see a little bit less of that ego of that, oh, the house has my money, I have to get it back, I have to beat the house. They more likely just want to play and want to stay in action and want to stay in that escaping kind of happy zoned out place. So then we have to look at the aspect of telescoping. And this is a concept you may already be familiar with if you treat alcohol use disorders or substance use disorders. But this idea that women tend to start gambling at a later age, but the progression to gambling disorder actually can happen more quickly. So it's that telescope effect. And they do tend to seek treatment earlier. So again, this is consistent with literature and other areas of addiction and mental health. So it's not a unique to gambling. But if you're new to providing gambling treatment, you might see this pattern. And this is again where we want to see that cross screening between AUD, SUD, and the process or behavioral addictions. Because we know particularly for women, we have that telescoping feature. So we want to really act on that as quickly as we can. So women may be more likely to seek treatment, but it might be for other issues. So we know this with gambling disorder, if there are not a lot of resources, or people have this idea that gambling disorder isn't an addiction, it isn't a thing on its own, it's a symptom of something else, right? We know better in the field. We know that women, they're going to seek treatment, but it's more likely to be for something else. It might be for a co-occurring depression, anxiety disorder, the AUD, SUD. In my area, I'm in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. I'm the only ICGC in the state, and we do have a great provider network. But in my area, I tend to get a lot of calls and referrals from providers who are not in the addiction realm, or maybe who treat other addictions but not gambling disorder, saying, hey, I've been working with this client, and they mentioned this in like the 6th session or the 10th session, or I've been working with them for, in some cases, a year. And now this gambling's coming up and I don't know what to do. So I do a lot of consultation. So it's something to keep in mind that if you're trying to find, okay, where's the population that need gambling services, they may already be working with other providers on other issues. So also reaching out to other providers, say, hey, if you're seeing this, let me help, let me provide a consultation, let me help you with some resources, because we know women tend to be more likely to seek treatment than men, but it's probably going to be for something else, not gambling disorder directly. So what does this mean, specifically for the treatment world? Again, women are going to typically present for something else, screen everybody. Even in my generalist side of my practice and the EAP work that I do with Morneau Shepell, I still ask the question about gambling. And if, even if it's something like, whoa, no, I don't do that, then maybe I've planted the seeds. So if it comes up for them later or someone else that they know, they can say, hey, wait, I know that's a thing. Let me give you someone's number. Paying attention specifically to the trauma and abuse histories is a really big factor for women. And keep in mind, there may be things that they've never reported or discussed. We know that there's a big intersection with IPV, domestic violence, interpersonal, intimate partner violence, and gambling disorder. Again, a topic for another time. We know there's an overlap with that. We know just in addiction in general, there's a huge overlap with trauma and abuse. and substance use, alcohol use disorders. It's the same with gambling disorder. So a lot of the time, when I'm working with women, we do kind of the immediacy piece of the gambling psychoeducation and getting the things in place and the finances and getting them linked in with what they need to do with the gambling. But once that immediate gambling crisis has kind of been addressed, the tendency in my practice that I've seen is that we start slipping into trauma. We slip into a lot of trauma work, relationship work, codependency work, and then linking it back to recovery and long-term recovery. But we're really building skills that address other issues that maybe have not been addressed before. So really paying attention to that trauma and abuse history as you're kind of doing the social history with the gambling piece. Listen for those themes, because there may be things that they've never talked to anyone about, they've never reported, or they just accepted and thought were okay, not realizing the impact. And you may have that latent trauma where you're really getting far along into the gambling treatment and kind of the day-to-day life impact, and then something comes up and they may have a crisis related to an unresolved trauma. Again, very similar to other addiction-related disorders. And again, that going back to that, the severity of the problem by dollars loss, look at the impact of the loss and the risk to stability. So particularly for women, if they have not, if we kind of assume a model of maybe women who have always been married or partnered, maybe have been, the constant caregivers, have not been in the professional world or had their own money, so to speak, if they're relying on someone else for their financial stability, a small, period of their life with gambling disorder really can have an impact. So for women, doing that financial counseling can look much different than when we're doing it with men. So just being sensitive to the fact that they may not have full control over their income, or they may be responsible for supporting others. They may be a little hesitant at first to really address the gambling because they may still have that belief that, I have to get it back, or I have to win to, fund my child or support my parents. So when we do the financial counseling, women may not, especially again, the older generation, may not have traditional banking practices. They may not have these investment retirement accounts, or it may be enmeshed or linked with a partner, a parent, someone else. So we have to approach it a little bit differently. Women may face several barriers, not that any client with an addiction-related disorder doesn't, but things I see more frequently with women is not being able to access that financial assistance as easily as men. And you have to keep in mind that really as early as the 70s, we still had a lot of financial and banking practices that were really discriminatory against women. So, if you're working with an older population, they may not have a credit score. It might be really, really low just because they've never established credit at any point in their life. Lower lifetime earnings. We tend to see, women have lower lifetime earnings because of caregiver responsibilities or that income discrepancy. If there has been any kind of divorce situation, if they've had financial issues after a divorce. So just overall, we tend to see that they may not have their own income, or it may not be documented income. We're really into what they call the gig economy and the side hustles. Their income may not be as documented. They may have different tax implications than a man would, or someone with a traditional income would. Caregiving responsibilities and expectations. This is big for women. I've been certified in telehealth since 2005. So I've been doing therapy online, over the phone, over video for a really long time. And most of my women really embrace the telehealth piece because of their caregiving responsibilities and expectations. I am completely flexible. If you have to have your kid next to you who has, an iPad and a set of headphones on doing their thing while we talk, fantastic. You're still getting care. You're still accessing it. If you have to travel because something happened with mom or dad and now you have to go to a different part of the state, great, that's fine. Maybe we switch to phone from video because of a Wi-Fi issue. It's having that flexibility to meet them where they are. In terms of those caregiver responsibilities, it's already so difficult to get somebody in the doors for treatment. And with gambling disorder, they're not having those medical emergencies. They may have some issues with chronic health that's been neglected, or anxiety or depression, but we don't have that, overdose aspect, right, from gambling disorder. So they tend to be farther in the progression of the psychological illness. So we want to make sure we're helping them really meet them where they are. And the caregiving stuff tends to fall more on women. The increased shame and stigma towards women for anything involving mental health, but particularly for gambling, lower access to healthcare for a variety of reasons, and they may not be comfortable attending GA. There have been a couple studies focusing on GA in women, and just the way GA is structured really doesn't speak to women a lot. Again, if we have women with a lot of trauma history, GA is very focused on the present and very black and white. And women may need that connection to process with other women in terms of the trauma and the impact and the caregiving issues. And GA doesn't formally allow a women's only type meeting. They have to be open to everybody. But I have a couple clients that kind of have this unofficial women's only GA, and it's kind of funny how they kind of go about it. And with COVID opening up a lot of online meetings, there have been some more meetings that are more female friendly. And my female clients, I do have one that has really been in GA off and on for the past 15 years. And she's been able to find these meetings that fit her, especially now that things have gone online. So I think that's really been a benefit. But women tend to go to GA and feel kind of uncomfortable afterwards. So really talking about that experience. We know 12-step is great as a part of our treatment, part of our approach to addiction-related disorders. But having that kind of boys club feeling can really turn women off, and we want to continue to have them get that support. So if you do run groups, and if you are a telehealth provider that runs groups, it's even better, because you might be able to pull women from different geographic areas to have kind of this women's only meeting and that support piece. So it'll be interesting to see the impact of online meetings as we move forward. So looking at media real quick and advertising, women tend to have one of three roles. They tend to be, the good luck charm in the casino, very sexualized. They tend to be seen as the troublemaker or the distraction, or a symbol of moral standards. And I have a slide coming up with some examples, some clips you can check out. I'm not going to do it here, just out of interest of time and bandwidth. You can look at them later. So women tend to be portrayed in the media this way. So it kind of minimizes seeing women as gamblers. The masculine types of portrayal that we tend to see, we sometimes see women in. A person with addiction, they tend to be very masculized. Seeing women as an entrepreneur tends to be, a stronger role, or women as a professional gambler. This is really rare to see women portrayed as a professional gambler, in TV and movies and things like that. So just some things to think about in terms of how women, we see ourselves in the media in relationship to gambling is much different than how we maybe interact with gambling. So when you have women coming into your rooms as gamblers, that shame and that stigma can be laid on pretty thick, because we don't see representation of women and roles that are not kind of hypersexualized or really shamed or really kind of more masculine. So this is kind of a short list of some clips. They're all on YouTube, so I tried to find clips that you didn't have to pay to see. You can check those out later. Just different examples of each of these. So we look at advertising, and how marketing, how gambling is advertised to women is really different culturally. So if you Google this and you look at the advertising differences in other parts of the world, the US is still conservative. We don't advertise as much. We have more regulation around it, but it doesn't mean it's not happening. So, the access to the types of games that are generally preferred by women, the escape, the non-strategy, the social, is increasing, and it's really being normed. So we're seeing a lot of advertising over social media, and I'll have Allison, leave that for her presentation. But one thing I did want to bring up, I actually just saw this in my grocery store and I grabbed it knowing this presentation was coming up. But if you haven't seen this, Doritos now has Doritos Roulette. So talk about being normed. It has an image of a roulette wheel. And in the corner, you might have a glare. It says, "Attention, some chips may be hot." And it has a poker chip. So that's actually written over a red and white poker chip. But the concept behind this snack is that some of the Doritos are the regular cheddar. Some of them are the spicy hot style. You don't know which one you're going to get. So they call it Doritos Roulette. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. Literally just saw that in the grocery store and grabbed it. Because, we talk about norming gambling just kind of in our culture. Now we've got it directly advertised in our snack foods. So, we use the term gaming instead of gambling. Gaming has less of a stigma, right? We talk about the gaming industry or gaming commissions. And then a lot of organizations have started to really target their perks to women. They're offering, access to spas, luxury items or shopping, maybe part of the club reward type programs. Some places even offer childcare or have flyers like Vegas. You can pick up a brochure or flyer in the hotel about who's got childcare near the casinos or who even comes to the casinos, comes to the hotels and offers in-room childcare. So really trying to cater to women more. And again, marketing is really regulated differently. There was a study done in Sweden. Almost 20% of their TV ads that promoted gambling, mostly online casinos, were targeting women, and they were playing them during family movies or children's programs during the day and in prime time. So they're targeting women by targeting the children's programming. So I thought that was kind of eye-opening. We don't have that here yet. And then just wanted to include, a couple images, and I apologize, I got cut off. Just a couple images that you see on some websites with some casinos that I found that are located in Illinois. Look at this image. You have what's apparently a woman's hand on about to hit the button, right? She has some nice jewelry, professional clothing. The person in the background that's kind of blurred, long hair, very feminine. The bottom picture has a senior. She's laughing. She's leaning into the machine. Looks like she might be with her partner, perhaps. So we look at just the imagery that's used, very much targeting women. We've got, kind of neutral clothing, but a little more, middle class or upper class look. They're smiling, they're laughing, they're engaging with each other. One has cash. She's holding cash above her head, right? Typically use player cards, but she's holding money. The picture on the bottom left always kind of cracks me up when I see it because you have this woman looking at a man who's like celebrating, but who has more chips in front of them? Thank you very much. He's really excited, but looks like she's doing better. But so you have this image is kind of, subliminal, like she's got more money in front of her. So definitely normalizes gambling for women. Hey, come here, you'll be relaxed, you'll have fun, you'll look nice, and you come here to play and win. So that's kind of the overview of women in gambling. Again, this is really kind of broad, some broad concepts, some broad ideas. So I, at this point, will hand it off to Allison.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to get my slide situated here. Give me just a second. For some reason, it is showing my slides in the wrong way here. Can you guys see my slide PowerPoint? Do you see the slides on the left and the right?
Yes.
Yes, Allison, we see the slides.
Okay, so for some reason it's showing my slides differently than my screen. Let me try.
Try to hit slideshow and then from beginning and see if it doesn't push it over for you.
Here, I'm just going to stop sharing and try to open it up again. I'm so sorry for this. Let me go back again. I'm going to my settings. Okay, let's see. if this helps. Okay, it looks like I might have to just share my slides the way they are. It's not showing up on my side. I apologize. So for interest of time, I'm just going to move along.
It's okay. We can see them, Allison.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terrific. Okay. So I think the first thing that we need to start with is understanding how social media has an impact on our lives, because that's really where social gaming begins. So we have to understand that, first of all, there's dopamine triggers within social media, and it's really built into them. And as we know, dopamine kind of nudges us towards behaviors that we want to engage in. And there are behavior reinforcement schedules and ludic loops built in to social media that kind of reinforce our desire to go back and be a part of them. And quite honestly, these are techniques that gambling firms use and that are being used in social media as well. So, and what we also understand about social media is that we are the attention in terms of the online economy. The more attention that we give to the online economy equals revenue. So that's where this all really starts in terms of the gaming, is we get there and then it finds a place for games to enter so we can stay there. And not only are we able to view different types of games that we can play, but also, we have to look at social media as a way that is introduced advertising to us. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, these are all advertising methods in terms of vouchers, hashtags, certainly videos that provide tutorials, as well as giving us videos that kind of give us a way of life, a branding that we want to, attribute to and be a part of. So we have to think about that as well in terms of how are we, how do we see games and how does social media affect our lives? So once we're on social media, we may be presented a social game. So we find this social game, we might find that we are interested in playing, and they're discoverable through the social media platform, and we start getting engaged. And that's where the analytics and heat maps and all of these types of data gets captured on us. And the social gaming world really pays attention to us at the individual level and what we like, because they get the help of social media to be able to track that behavior and give them information about what we would like to do individually. So not only that, but they're watching how social games are working. So once a social game reaches a specific monetary metric, well, guess what? The team monitoring that game is doubled or tripled, because they know that it's reaching certain monetary metrics. So they're paying attention to all of that. And then, of course, this is the freemium model. So we download this social game, and many of you will not make, an online purchase, but many people are. And so money is being made through these in-app purchases during the social game. And a great example of this is Candy Crush Saga. So let's start talking about the human brain and how uncertainty creates this desire to come back and engage in this activity anymore. So as we know, this is similar to drugs. When you have this kind of repeated exposure that gambling does for us, but also games do for us. And Candy Crush is certainly an excellent example of what this is, because Candy Crush creates that uncertainty, where you're trying to mix and match sweets. And that uncertainty draws us back into the game and wants us to engage with it even more. So unfortunately, this also has a great effect on people at risk for gambling disorder or those living with problem or gambling disorder. So we have to understand that these games have these same psychological principles. And as you can see here, Candy Crush certainly is making quite a few dollars, because it was sold to Call of Duty for $5.9 billion. And as you can see, most of its money is made through in-app purchases. Well, how does this translate to social casino gaming? So, social casino gaming is a step closer to actual gambling. So you can play traditional style poker, slots, bingo, and various table games. And it's the freemium model. They're free to play, but you're able to purchase virtual chips. So you're not getting money back in return, but you're able to make a purchase of virtual chips as well as other types of opportunities like memberships into clubs. And it's certainly an excellent marketing tool. And land-based casinos are seeing this. So because they realize the audience that are coming to these social casino games monthly can even be bigger than what comes to Las Vegas in all of 1 year. And when they've launched these studies, what they found is that when they provide these incentives to the social casino games, that there are upticks in traffic to actual land-based casinos. So, people coming to the social casino games, oh, this is great. I want to go to a land-based casino. Here's an incentive. I'm going to go. So, similar to, as mentioned with these social games, you'll see that these social casino games also have, obviously a great advertising platform on social media. They even have their own social media page on Facebook. And just to explore and do a little, just to see what it was like, I played Slotomania, and in 5 minutes, I had 30,000 coins. They asked me to brag about it on Facebook at least 5 times, and they kept asking me if I wanted to buy coins. So certainly this can give someone an illusion of control over a game. And of course, these are not regulated. So there is no regulation as far as what payout should be. So there's embellished bonuses. And obviously they're tracking me through that data and those analytics as well in terms of what I play and how I play it. And why should we be concerned about women? Well, first we have to look at the land-based casinos, because we see that as kind of, the ultimate goal is for many of these social casino games is to get people to come to land-based casinos. Is of course, a lot of older women are targeted by casinos and are actually aggressively marketed to, specifically because of disposable income they might have. And of course, as mentioned several times, women tend to favor slot machines. And I know that Jessica mentioned this, but concern should be raised as well, because older adult women develop gambling problems significantly faster than men at that time. And of course, a casino can be a place to socialize and alleviate boredom. It is a safe place and it's convenient, and they provide those incentives. But what about social casino games? And if we look at how this translates to the online world, you find that more women are not only playing social casino games, but they're betting more on virtual chips than men, which is, quite surprising, because when we think about gambling, we think about men spending more money, women spending less, and women, typically when they're at risk or develop a problem, they tend to be escaping, and it's less about the money, right? But it seems to be in the social casino world, women are spending more money, and also more women are engaging on these platforms. So why we should also be concerned, Dr. Sally Gainsbury, who's in Australia, does a lot of research in terms of gambling and games and convergence, social casino games. And this specific study took 176 adult social casino gamers who already were reporting a problem with gambling. And as you can see here, they found that these individuals were also going to social casino games for various problems. For example, to escape from to escape their problems, and so on. So as you see here, we have to understand that social casino games are also a risk for those that are at risk for developing problem gambling or already have problem gambling or living with a gambling disorder. So this is why it should be of concern, because we know more women are on there, they're spending money. Why are they spending money? And is there a crossover? You know, are people going to these social casino games and then, you know, going and gambling? And, you know, what we find in many studies is that, yes, you know, if you look here, you'll see that, for example, 22% of New Jersey residents had played social casino games, which was associated with a greater gambling engagement. Or let's look at 20% of 521 Australian social casino game players reported that they had gambled for money as a result of playing social casino games. So people are going to these games, and as a reminder, they are not regulated. The illusion of control, big bonuses, they're spending money, and then they cross over to the gambling world. And in many cases, if you look back at Dr. Sally Gainsbury and her study specific with youth, she found with youth, when they're engaging in the social casino games and then going to gambling, that they're having higher problem gambling severity scores than those youth that did not do the practice games. So we have to consider these practice games also, you know, a gateway to gambling, but also the illusion of control there may play into those cognitive distortions that we know that are a part of gambling disorder. But here's the thing that I really want everyone to kind of drive home to and really think about this. How are social casino games finding and keeping players? Well, this is where we really need to think about regulation in terms of these games. And I want you to take and really think about this. So 3% of users will generate 80 to 90% of income for social casino games. Just 3%. And they actually have a term called proto whales. And proto whales can predict, within the first game session if a proto whale is going to be a person that will spend a lot of money. And you know what a person that will spend a lot of money translates into? A person that is at risk for developing a gambling disorder. And they have behavior analysis software within Facebook that can help with this. And what does that translate to for social casino games and Facebook is big money. So we really need to pay attention to this. And of course, as you can see, it is a moneymaker because by 2022, they're projected to reach $5.89 billion. So I think at this point, if you're not aware of this, we're all starting to say, okay, well, what do we do about this? Well, the good news is there have been some things occurring. For example, Big Fish Casino Games in Washington State by December 14th of 2020 had 50,000 class members who submitted claims against them because of the money that they lost, saying that social casino games violate laws and illegal gambling. And, you know, they approved 155 million going out to those part of that claim. And then very recently, Apple, who has the apps for many of these social casino games, was hit with a class action lawsuit again in 25 states saying that it was breaking anti-gambling laws. So people are seeing this as gambling. And so things are starting to happen and move in the direction with federal courts in terms of really defining what it is. And I'm not going to play this, but PBS has a great special, and this link you'll get when you get the PowerPoint presentation. But this great PBS link takes you to a short video about a woman who was targeted by social casino games. She saw an ad, she began to play. Within a month, She had spent thousands of dollars within a year, $40,000. And she said that she asked them to stop emailing her, and instead they emailed her more. So we need to pay attention. Again, Jessica talked a lot about that advertising. It's really important for us to understand that, how impactful advertising is in our lives, as well as the crossover between gaming and gambling, not just in terms of social games, but how the worlds are converging in terms of land-based casinos, understanding the value of marketing with social casino games. That is the end of my presentation. And Robbie, I believe we're almost right at time.
Yes, thank you, Allison. Thank you, Jessica. What great presentations. I really enjoyed it. I believe we all did, 187 of us. But we do now have, this is time for our all-important poll question. This is how we take attendance, guys. This is where your CEU's connected. This is how I get you to answer the poll question. Okay, so what state are you in right now? Oh gosh, you even included me. Thank you. What state are you in right now? Mark, A, if it's Illinois, B, if it's Indiana, C, if it's Massachusetts, D, if it's North Carolina, or if you're in none of these. And we'll leave this up for 30 more seconds. We've got 81% who voted already, so we're off to a great start. And as you guys are answering the poll question, the next 9 minutes or so before we take a short break, we've got some questions. I think some really great questions for you, Jessica and Allison, in the Q&A. So we'll wait before, we've got about T-minus 8 seconds. And I'm not sure, do I need to end the polling, guys, or?
You're good to go, Robbie.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we've got the next, we have 11:01 Central Standard Time. We're going to go until 11:10 with questions, and I have a couple. Jessica, Allison, is it okay if I read them off to you? Okay, cool. All right, the first one comes from Adriana. She asks, if a person engages in investing such as a platform like Robinhood a few times a year, but loses, significant amounts of money, would you consider this gambling?
Yeah, so with the high risk investment, it is considered a form of gambling. So again, you're wagering something of value on something you don't have control over, something of chance. So it sounds like part of that question too may have been, do you consider problem gambling, right? Because mentioning the money that was lost. And again, the dollar amount lost, it depends on the impact on that person. If they lose a substantial amount of money, but it seems substantial to you, but it's not substantial to them, and they kind of factor that in, like they accepted that, hey, I could risk thousands or hundred thousands of dollars and it happened, I'm okay with that, then it's not considered problem gambling. I have had a couple clients recently on Robinhood and other more traditional platforms where the investments have been an issue. When the pandemic hit, a lot of people, had financial insecurity. I did have a couple people go to those platforms to try to win money quickly. And yes, so we do consider that gambling, but it may or may not be a problem. If someone does that for a living, for example, and they understand the risk and they're taking calculated risks, just because they lost that amount of money, it doesn't mean it necessarily gets into like a gambling disorder.
Great. Thank you for answering that. Yeah, and I guess there's some clinical context that would go into that, answering that. So thank you. This is a good one, Jessica, Allison. Do we know why GA, and I wasn't aware of this, and maybe you guys know about this, GA prohibits women-only meetings in GA?
Yeah, I think the belief is the only criteria to be in GA is it's a desire to stop gambling. That's it. So to keep it kind of open and universal, and GA is more highly structured if you compare it to other 12-step programs. And they tend to stay more present focused, like just on the gambling, just on what we're talking about today. We don't see the other like themed meetings as much as we see in other. You won't have readings, you won't have things like that. So they really keep it more black and white, to that it's anyone who walks in the door who wants to stop gambling. So that's the rationale behind it. Which, I mean, makes sense on paper, it makes sense. But as you see other 12-step groups kind of spin off in other subgroups to attract more people, right? GA with it, well, anyone can walk in the door and you don't turn them away. Sounds great on paper, but maybe as it plays out, a lot of women aren't comfortable, particularly if the meeting is mostly men. So people are finding unofficial ways to get around it, I think, but that's the basic rationale.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. I know in AA, there's men's only meetings. There can be women's only meetings. And a lot of that is decided, within the meeting itself, and will branch off. So that's interesting to hear. And I know with women in GA that, the numbers are increasing, and that's a great thing. So thank you for answering that. The next question ask about virtual chips. Denise asked, she wanted a little bit more in depth explanation on virtual chips.
So virtual chips are literally, they're not tangible. You literally buy a virtual chip and in order to spend it on the social casino game. So it may be a total that you see at the top of the screen. I've played videos of the social casino games before where you actually buy chips and you see them kind of virtually go up into your total at the top of the screen. So you're not getting anything tangible. In the online world, we have to think about in terms of value a little bit differently, because if we start talking about loot boxes in the video game world or virtual chips, it becomes of value to people as they join this online community of people where they're interacting, they join memberships, maybe they're talking about it on Facebook, but identities and community and things of value are shifting. So I know when we talk about, what do you mean virtual chips? But it's literally a virtual chip that you have in the online world, but you would never hold in the physical world.
Yeah, great answer, Allison. I'm still learning about gaming myself, and it's a dopamine driver, right? Although it doesn't have, it may not have monetary value, it still drives dopamine, right? And that can be opportunity. It can be opportunity for having some issues. Next question is, in the states where you both are, which I think you both are in North Carolina, right? Do they have gambling parlors like Dottie's, which we have in Illinois? Can you speak to the role they play in attracting women to gambling? And if I may, ladies, I know in Illinois, and I'm sure you know too, that they've got the most standalone gambling machines out of any state in the US. And in North Carolina, where you're at, about sweepstakes parlors. So I think that's what Mike is asking about, gambling parlors or sweepstake parlors in North Carolina.
So Jessica, you can add to this too. So there are sweepstakes parlors in North Carolina. There's been legislation written for them to become illegal, but sweepstakes industry has then come back with games of skill. And still there's always that question, is it illegal? North Carolina upholds that these games are illegal. And each jurisdiction, county in the state has to decide how they're going to handle it, because there are very few alcohol and drug officers assigned to illegal problem gambling in North Carolina, and they're focusing on the larger projects. We also have fish tables in North Carolina where people sit around the table and they shoot at digital fish.
Yes.
And again, there's the question, is this illegal? And they go back to, well, it's a game of skill. But unfortunately, it ravishes under-resourced communities. Sometimes there's crime. And unfortunately, these are not necessarily regulated in a positive, for communities in North Carolina. Jessica, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, I started my career in Ohio, and I know we still have it. It's very prevalent in Ohio. And where I am in Charlotte, we'd have less of the sweepstakes rooms. Like, the worst secret is our backroom poker circuit. So we have fewer, the machines, we have more of the poker and the sports betting. So just the part of the state, we're in two different parts of the state.
Yeah, Good to know. And we serve both states at LifeWorks Morneau Chappelle. So I see both, and I get to hear from clinicians who serve in each state how that kind of rolls out with the independent gambling machines in Illinois and the sweepstake parlors. But thank you for your answer. We've got 1 minute, and I have 2 questions. One question is, are there self-exclusion programs for social gaming? Do you know, Allison, or even Jessica, do you guys know?
I don't think so, because it's not regulated. And as I mentioned with that PBS special, there was a woman that was actually emailing them and asking them to stop targeting her, and they did not. So they're taking advantage of those people that they know could be living at risk or with addictions, which is highly unethical, needs to be regulated, and we need to do something to stop it now.
Yeah, if you ask to exclude, they're more likely to double down on their communication.
Okay, last question, and this one's going to be a loaded one, and we have like 30 seconds. But with all the hype of psychedelics and addiction treatment, is there anything being done for gambling addiction in this vein?
In terms of psychopharmacology, not that I'm aware of. I haven't seen anything published. The only medication I've seen in use for gambling disorder, other than SSRIs, is naltrexone. And it's been kind of hit or miss with my patients, but nothing in the psychedelics, unless we're talking about treatment for co-occurring major depressive disorder. Did I get it in time?
You did. Thank you, Jessica. Thank both of you. Great presentation. So I really enjoyed it, and judging from the text and the questions, everyone enjoyed it. So great job. And we had like 180 plus on today. So folks, let's take a break until 11:20. So let's take 10 minutes. Everybody walk around, and please rejoin us at the lunch roundtables, okay? Thank you again, Jessica. Thank you again, Allison. It was great to hear your talk on women and gambling and social casino gaming. All right, see you guys in 10 minutes.